Well, we just took you around the country to show you clips of the various processions, if you like, of what has been happening across states. You have seen how various states turned out en masse in solidarity with Asuu and the positions put forward by various labor leaders in these different states. The position is simple. They want the strike called off and they want education funded. Let's come back to my guest, who himself was also at the forefront there in that protest that took place here in Akwa Ibom State. He's the chairman of the Civil Liberties Organization Akwa Ibom State branch, talking about Otwiko Franklin Isong. Franklin Isong, let's get back to the subject. Before that break there, to bring those clips, we were talking about what you said, Mr. President, that you knew then is not the president that you know now. Now, with all of this protest, we've taken the viewer across the country to show them how this protest, turned out in different states. What do you anticipate from this protest?
Like I started by commending the NLC. Watching this clip now, it gives me hope that the labor movement that I knew, that I have been part of, years to years, is still intact, and there is no infiltration, and there is no gangsterism, there is no betrayal, there is no sabotage also. First, when the labor came up with this notice of going on this protest, you recall that the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, came up and said that the labor cannot go on this protest, that it is unlawful. That it is unlawful. I wouldn't know whether he was well guided, whether he has even read the law to know what the Constitution says about freedom of association and freedom of
expression,
of expression and association and gathering. We are just doing a very peaceful procession. If you don't read the Constitution properly, you will be making mistake like the minister made by saying that it was unlawful. He cannot say that a peaceful protest as this, Nigerians, whether they are of the NLC or they are of any group, has no right to go out on a peaceful procession, on a peaceful protest. Protest is part of democracy. The essence of democracy is because it gives you and I the opportunity to ventilate our opinion, to agree and disagree, and come to a round table.
Sense of inclusion.
So, for coming to declare such a peaceful movement and unlawful, it was completely out of place and unnecessary and uncalled for. That being said, I know that if Mr. President sit back and watch these clips from these various states, as I have just watched now, he will now know that this particular thing that is coming like this, if it is not resolved, it's going to snowball into something that cannot be controlled. Why am I saying this? Recall the NSAS protest. It was a very simple thing. But that one didn't have the convener. It was only a converge of Twitter and social media. It didn't have a face. So nobody could give ultimatum to say this is what we want and this is the time we will do it. Now you have a group that has a face, that have a platform
and has representatives.
And they have come to tell you this is what we will do, and they have done it for you to see that they have the capacity, the ability to do it. It now behoves on the president and his cabinet members to return back to the drawing board and resolve this issue. The NLC have said after these 2 days protest, there will be another 3 days warning protest
before a strike,
before a total shutdown. I am waiting for the day the NLC will come out to say we want to fix Nigeria. We are demanding that our leaders fix Nigeria, and then we will not be able to be on the street to keep vigil. Have you watched the Sri Lanka protest?
Yeah, but we don't want it. We don't want it to get to that level.
I will ask you a question. If
yes,
you have watched,
I have.
And I know that the president and his cabinet members have also watched.
They escaped.
Good. I mean, our president has also watched the clip, and they've seen what happened there. It's a small thing like this that could lead to something that cannot be controlled. I looking at the history of labor has not been known to be coward they make promises and they carry it out. If you follow the labor movement from the days of, let me even use the Nobel Pengassin, when we used to have Frank Kokori in the 90s, holding the Bangida government. In fact, what led to June 12 being actualized, what led to IBB stepping aside, it was the NLC and the labor force that came over and shut down the entire system. That forced the Bangida government to step aside because the country became too hot for him, not unable to, since he has already annulled the June 12th. That led to that protest that became the all-encompassing protest. That Labour now stepped in, the Pengas stepped in, it becomes something that couldn't be controlled and consumed the military government of IBB. He now had to step aside. Then Abacha took over. What eventually led to democracy today was a series of protests by the labor movement and the activists that, like us, that will continue to mount protests. We don't have the guns or machete. What we just have is we have the right to say we want to stay on the road. We have the right to say we want to stay on the road. Have you not? Okay, there are those who even go on hunger strike. But here we are saying, as people who are educated minds, a very common issue. Why are our children at home? What the Asuu is asking for, they're not asking for themselves. They're asking for a better education. And that is why when I saw the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, taking his child to one of the public schools and brought in CNN to come and video it, I laugh, making mockery of the entire thing. If our public servants put their children in public schools, they will understand what Asuu is talking about. Have you walked into the public institution, like let's take for example UNIO, which is close to Akwa Ibom, which is close to us here in UNIO? Walk into and see how the lecturers struggle to address the students. You have the class overwhelmed, very filled with so many students, and you have a lecturer to address to hand over 200 to 300 students with an unhygienic environment, lack of facility for research. And why is it that when our lecturers or our academics leave Nigeria to abroad, they become celebrated. They do very well. Why are we not doing it in Nigeria? It's because we don't have the enabling environment. So what the Asuu is asking for is what every parent wish we should have. It's what we have in the private institutions. So why can't we have it in the public schools? The government has these resources. Use these resources to better our own schools.
Yeah, but these resources are scarce. These resources are scarce. I mean, let's look at how much.
It is your duty
let's
as
look
a
at
government
how much Asuu is asking
your
for.
own institutions.
It's in trillions.
It doesn't.
It's in trillions.
If the government had been able to address this issue from 2007, that they signed this agreement, till today they would have been able to resolve it. As we even have to stagger it. They have to even bring up, they staggered the entire process of payment, of putting up these funds. I mean, government build these institutions. Government keep on approving more federal institutions. When the government is unable to develop the ones you have, you will see that it is not a political largesse. They will just sit there and say they are giving social community because one chieftain of a party is there, a federal university. When the ones you have on ground are unable to function. Funded. So you own you own these institutions. Do it the way that it will be able to stand and compete with other institutions. It becomes an issue. So what Asuu is saying is what every parent will wish that we have in the public schools. So I am, and the CLO and every activist in Nigeria support. That is why you see Falano in Ogun State joining the protest, abandoning his chambers,
his practice.
And so also you will see across the country, this is a warning signal that something bigger is building up. If this government is unable to address this NLC issue, I don't want to speak doom, but I see something that is going that may likely consume
But let us look at the history of NLC strikes from the advent of democracy. How effective? Because there are persons who have lambasted the NLC, saying the NLC has become weak over time. That the NLC is not as strong, as active as it used to be from the early days of democracy. Do you think that this current crop of leaders, especially in the NLC, can pull that weight and draw that attention and force the government to, accede to the demands of Asuu or call off the strike?
You see, the problem of NLC is not that NLC is weak. NLC is not weak. You have just seen, this is just a few clips. By the time you play across the entire country, you will now see that the strike was as ordered by NLC. Now, the government is always afraid of having constructive criticism. Let us speak, for example, Nopeng. The government came up with Pengason to split the powers of Nopeng in the 90s. Where Fakokore was like the president of Nopeng. When they speak, all the workers in the oil sector will shut down their tools. Then the presidency, the British government came up and bring up a group, Pengason, senior staff. That say, okay, since you are junior staff, you can protest. We are not part of you. They split the ranks and file of the Pengason. It happened in 2000 when Adam Oshimolu was the president of NLC. And when the then president, Obasanjo, would speak, the president of NLC would speak, Labour and the entire Nigerians will obey the president of NLC.
Who was Adams Oshimolu then?
Adams. And so the only way the president and the government could break the ranks and file of the president was to bring in the TUC, Trade Union Congress, that now split the
another
ranks.
faction.
A faction that say we are senior, we are, we are
the trade union.
We're not part of you. They split the ranks of the NLC. Currently, you have NLC was having crisis of factional, leadership. It is the way the government want to see. Their government is putting fire from behind to speak that the body doesn't have a common form to come out together to speak. So NLC is always intact, but the government is always afraid. The government is trying to, to legalize and split the splinter groups. Even recently, I think last year also, you heard of NDA coming up with a faction in the north, where some groups say we are not of the Israel NBA, and they try to split NBA because when you have a voice under one platform, the government will be afraid, and so they will try to look at those disgruntled members in your group and seem to use them to fight
against
the
body. Structure.
And then they will come up and they say you have a freedom of association, form your own group, license to operate, go ahead and operate, and split the group. So when NLC speaks, this other group will say we're not part of you.
So there's
even
a pro and anti.
Even this Asuu strike, you've heard that some institutions are saying we're not part of it. Part of it. That is what the government will wish it should happen. Even when we had the NSAS protest, government was trying to infiltrate.
Well, that's an allegation.
To bring issues.
That's an allegation.
Yeah, of course, we could see those men who were used.
Yeah, but no one has been able to provide substantial evidence to back it up that it was the government.
I don't want to see. We're not here to discuss it. I'm giving you that. I tell you that government is always afraid when they see a formidable group.
Yeah, but government is trying to prevent collateral damage.
The government should not be trying to fuel crisis amongst groups.
How is government fueling crisis?
Well, I've given you. I've chronicled how government has succeeded in past. I've given you the one of the Pengason. I've told you why we have the TUC. And this is what happened. Even the Asuu, you have some group who say we're not part of this strike, and that is what government will like. But here is a minister who work at on students who demand that he should address this issue of Asuu. Here is a minister who says that striking, that doctors who are asking for better welfare can go abroad if they want. That we have more than enough doctors. This is a minister of labor. So I think the president needs to come back and reanalyze, reappraise. See your team that you asked to do this work to come and negotiate. Are they actually helping you or they're trying to sabotage your government? How far? What is the effort that they have done so far? And what is the result of their effort?
Okay, before we call it a wrap, because I think we've been able to justify reasonably what we've been talking about, what is the way forward as your pattern shot?
My pattern shot, the way forward is I give the President Buhari a very free advice. He should take charge. he should dismantle or disband the team led by the Minister of Labour and Minister of Education, and then personally become the one that will lead the team now.
Is that not too much?
What is too much when the government is, by the time this strike continues, man hour will be wasted, everything will be granted. So what then is too much? You are saying, talking about the issue of insecurity, you are saying that the strike, the protest could be hijacked. Why can't you address this issue so that so that there won't be any protest for anybody to hijack? Okay. So the president should personally take over this settlement or this dialogue. Call the Asuu members. Asuu is not meant for one man to leave.
But Asuu saying they don't want to talk. Asuu saying they don't.
Ask them what is their issue.
They are saying they don't want to talk, that they want action.
That is the point. If the president calls them today and talk to them, and tomorrow they see action, because the president seems to rely more on his appointees who are trying to sabotage his effort.
Okay. Well, that is the size of our package. Must say thank you so much to Twicom Franklin Isong, Chairman, Civil Liberties Organization, Akwa Ibom State Branch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you'll be joining them to Abuja
tomorrow. Sure, we'll be there.
Okay.
I like such movement.
Okay.
To make things right.
Well, for you, the viewer, education plays a very integral role in every society. A society that has a lot of educated persons is a solid society. A society or a government that prioritizes education, of course, is thinking about the future of tomorrow. You know that education is essential because on the platform of education, we can have development. How long then should our children, our brothers, our sisters, and all the persons who are affected by the strike be at home? Well, the Academic Staff Union of Universities is fighting, some will say, for a noble cause. Whichever side of the divide you believe in or you're standing for, mine is education is important. So, as my personal opinion, Ikechukwu Jue, saying, let the federal government wade into the situation, let the president look into it to prevent it from escalating further or resulting into what we saw, the hashtag NSAS protest become. I do believe that education is something we shouldn't joke with. And I believe Mr. President in advance will do the needful. And that's the package. My name is Ikechukwu Jue. Till we make a return tomorrow, it's bye for now. Let's talk security, current affairs.